Hi, I'm Katie Geiger, and this segment is about comprehension. In this segment, I'm going to tell you 3 very important things about helping your child with comprehension. Comprehension means understanding what you've read or understanding what you've heard. In order to understand something, you need to first remember what it was. Now, a parrot can just repeat back what it hears, but it has not connected any meaning with that. So, how do we move children beyond just repeating back what they've heard? Well, that's the place where we start, where they repeat back. So let's pretend that you are doing a craft at the table and you are getting ready to get started with it, and you say, first we're going to cut these pieces of paper and then we're going to glue them onto this piece of paper. First we cut and then we glue. Okay, what did you hear me say? What are we going to do first? And what do we do next? Okay, let's get started. Or, we're getting ready for bed. First brush your teeth and then wash your face. Okay, tell me back. What are you going to do first? Then what are you going to do? Okay. They're repeating back, and when they follow through, then you know that they have understood those directions. Children can also repeat back things that characters say in the story. In this book, The Little Red Hen, in this book the pictures are by Lucinda McQueen. You know this story. The little red hen tries to make bread, and the other characters that she lives with do not want to help her. So they can repeat back the things that the other characters say. If the little red hen says, "Who will help me plant these grains?" you can be, "Not I," said the goose. "Not I," said the cat. "Not I," said the dog. And they can repeat back to you. Okay, let's be the goose. What does the goose say? "Not I," said the goose. And you can do that for each character. Now, if you want to take this even further, if they've really enjoyed this story, you can say, okay, let's act out this story. I'll be the little red hen, and you be the goose and the cat and the dog. And all they have to do is repeat back the story when it's their turn to have the dialogue. That is comprehending. That is remembering. And it's also being incredibly engaged with the story. So the first thing you're going to do for comprehension is help children's memory. Make sure they listen and can repeat back things that you tell them, or repeat back things that the character says. The next thing in helping a child build comprehension is asking them questions about a story, like this. This book is called One Bear at Bedtime, and it is by Mick Inkpen. If I'm going to ask them questions, and I'm just starting this process with children, I'm not going to wait until the end of the story. I'm going to read 1 or 2 pages and then try to remember what happened. Like this. One Bear at Bedtime. One bear at bedtime is all I need. I have 2 pigs who wear my clothes, 3 kangaroos who bounce on my bed. What does he need at bedtime? He just needs one. Oh yeah, he needs one bear. And who was that who was wearing his clothes? Yeah, the pigs were wearing his clothes. And who was that jumping on the bed? So I'm going to stop periodically and just ask them questions about the story. The more familiar children are with this process, the more pages you can do before you ask them these questions. Maybe you can get to the point where you're halfway through the book and then ask them, what happened so far in this story? That is retelling the story. It's much more difficult than just answering questions. Remember in the first part where I said, what does he need at bedtime? He only needs one. And that all the child had to do was to supply one word, the bear. And then I said, who was wearing his clothes? All they had to do was remember the pigs. But when I say to them, let's just say a story like It Looked Like Spilt Milk by Charles Shaw. Let's say to them, sometimes it looked like spilt milk. but it wasn't spilt milk. Sometimes it looked like a rabbit, but it wasn't a rabbit. Sometimes it looked like a bird, but it wasn't a bird. Now, flip forward in your mind, pretend I've read this whole book, and I can ask them, tell me, what were some of the things in this book? What were some of the things that the cloud looked like? Or I could say, tell me, what happened in this story with the little red hen and the people that she lived with? That is a very high level skill, but you know you already do this. Every time you sit at the table at dinner time and you recount the events of the day, you are retelling the story of your day. And now we're just taking it to retelling somebody else's story. Of course, the more you read it, the more it becomes your own story. And sometimes I'll say to them, well, wait, I'm going to retell this story. Once upon a time there was a little red hen, and she lived with a cat, a goose, and a dog. And one day, she had to do all of the work. She had to do all of the work. They didn't help her with anything. One day she found some seeds of wheat and she wanted to plant them. And then the dog said, not I. And the cat said, not I. What am I leaving out? What am I forgetting about this? So you can leave out details and let them supply them. So what do we know so far? Comprehension means understanding. And understanding is built upon their memory of things. And you're going to build that up by asking them, what are you going to do first? What are you going to do second? Building their memory. The next thing you're going to do is ask them questions when you're only partway through the story. Who got the boy's clothes all dirty? Who was jumping on the bed? Who squeezed out all the toothpaste? Who got the bubbles all over the floor? You're just asking them questions. And then when you're ready, and when you feel they are really ready, then they are going to retell the story for you. And if you are going to retell a story, you need to start with very simple stories. Maybe it's a story that they have heard over and over and over again. You know they have favorite stories that they like to hear. Or maybe it's a Three Little Pigs story that you've told over and over and over again, and they can just retell it to you. And then to really cement it in their brain, act out the story. The more acting out of stories that you do, the firmer those connections are in their brain. And that story becomes theirs. You do not have to go through this process every single time. You do not always have to stop and ask them what they remember about a story, or to have them retell the story to you. You can retell it at dinner time. Or you can just enjoy the story. You can just sit there and read and enjoy the story together. But the more you practice comprehension, the more you practice remembering and connecting meaning with it, then the stronger readers they are going to be. Now here's a bonus. Just like in the one I did with the segment about reading, if you want to really know if they understand a story and get it, ask them, why did the author write this story? Why did Charles Shaw write this book about It Looked Like Spilt Milk? And sometimes children will say, he wants you to know what he sees when he looks at clouds. That makes sense. Or he wants you to look up at the clouds. That makes sense. Or clouds can be anything. What a creative idea. Let's go look at clouds. Why do you think the author wrote this story? They have all kinds of ideas. They will enchant you with the ideas that they have. Everything from everybody should help to you should forgive people and give them bread anyway. Or why do you think Mick Inkpen wrote this book about one bear at bedtime? One time a child said to me, you have to do a lot of things before you can finally go to bed. Let them enchant you. Let them think. Enjoy your reading time.